Hello, welcome to Garden Chronicles. I'm James David, and this particular video I would like to talk about this particular plant known as Pellionia repens. Basically, it is most likely misidentified as a begonia species. However, commonly it is known as watermelon begonia. And in this video, I'll be talking a little bit more on the plant care and a little bit more on the particularities on how this particular plant is grown in my garden space. Now, I want to mention a little bit here is that I have three different types in my garden, and basically somehow they are identified in different names, and so I'm just going to put it over here so that you'll be able to identify it. In a way, I can say that their characteristics are very much similar, and one of the things that I want to make mention about it is that I have been growing this particular plant almost for 10-15 years plus, and I find that this fall into a very hardy plant in that category brace. Now, one of the things that I want to make mention is that this particular plant does very well in the tropical regions around Asia, Southeast Asia region. However, I'm not very sure when it comes to the cold climate region. Hence, these do very well as terrarium plants. However, I find that due to the humidity factor, they appears to do very well in a terrarium based plant. Now, one of the factors that I want to mention is that don't get me wrong that these are actually tropical plants. However, when they receive too much water, they tend to rot. Now, if you have noticed in this particular one, you can see that there's sort of like a bud rot and a leaf rot simply because of the too much of a water element here. And I must say that due to the factor that now in this season of time that it rains daily for very long hours, and in that context, these can fall into this kind of category where they can be rotting and kind of stuff like that. So do take note that not overwatering. And I also noticed that they do root in water. Do trim them and place them in a cup, and the roots do form. But however, the transition from water roots to back to the soil medium, then the plant may not be successful. Hence, what I do here is that when it comes to propagation, I just normally trim and just poke them into a medium soil mix, and they just do fairly well in that kind of context. Now, coming back to the main factor which I actually admire this particular plant is that colorization that appears in the foliage. And one of the things here is the cascading effect that if you notice here, they do very well, and in a way that like some plants, they seems to be overwhelming each other. This particular type of plant, this Pellionia, seems to handle the cascading factor very gracefully. Now, one of the things that I've noticed here is that this name watermelon begonia appears to come from that, because it does appears to have a begonia like features and the colorization of a melon skin color tones, and this is one of the things that I admire most. And in a way, as I mentioned earlier, that is a very hardy plant, and I really find that in long term they do able to handle it very well, where you don't have to constantly trim, prune or replant. They don't have a short lifespan. So in a way, if you have a busy schedule lifestyle, these do very well, and you can enjoy them in a factor where not too much of commitment or maintenance is required. Another factor about this particular plant, the characteristics, is that I find that watermelon begonia, they do not branch out from the main stem. In a way to say that it is going to be one plant, is going to be one long trailing plant. Hence, if you want to have sort of like a bushy kind of a cascading hanging basket, it'll be good to trim a little bit, about 4 or 5 nodes, and poke into the potting media and a hanging basket and let it trail down. In this context, what I want to mention is that they do not stem out from the main vine in a way like how money plant does, or ephemeranum, or some philodendron. They sort of like do break out from the side nodes. A new plant may emerge from that, sort of a new branching, but this particular type do not. Hence, do take note in that sense that if you are only having one branch of plant, it is just going to be one long branch of a hanging cascading type of trailing plant. Another factor that I've noticed that, like most plants, some of these particular ones do have some pest problems, such as these that I've noticed that snails and slugs do find themselves attracted to this one, and you can see that the telltale signs of half-eaten leaves, and also on the context where if you do not actually use pesticides, or in my case, I actually try to refrain as much as pesticide as possible. Hence, if you notice that these scale insects infection have taken place. So, however, unlike other plants, these do not have major problems, and so do pay attention at the back of the leaves time to time, just to check that they do not have any whitefly infection or mealybug, as you will never know if in the context where if it's they face negligence or low maintenance, pests do come on them time to time. Another main factor that I would like to introduce or make mention is that the colorization, and this is one of the factors that it is in a way to say that not much of an emphasis is made, is the color code. One of the things that I find that when it comes to small space garden, and I find that mix match and the factor or make creating a kind of a combination or combo in a way to say different plants and plant together to make that colors meet in a way to say that the impact of colors. And I find that this particular plant seems to do so well in a way that if you were to mix match them with other plants, especially like ephepharinum or even begonias, in a way I can find that in the variety of many colors put together, somehow this particular one seems to do fairly well, where it does not have very deep, strong, overwhelming root ball. In a way, I find that this seems to do good in a small kind of a place where they can actually do well in that kind of context. And normally I find that for some strange reason, that when I actually poke them in nook, crook, and corner, in a way to say that cut a kind of a wine and poke them into a kind of a space, they seems to do very well. Apart from where I actually focus very much as just exclusively in one particular pot, in a way they don't seems to be happy or not growing vigorously. And I find that in a context where that's been said, they do very very well as a filler plant. Another factor that I've noticed is that initially, as once the plant has been cut and planted, the new trailing plants, if they were to occur from the main branch or at the base of the branch, the colorization is often dark. And another factor that I notice is the lighting. If they receive a strong, good light, they seems to appear more in a darker shades. And if at all it is like say reflected light or semi bright light, the colorization of the leaf appear to be more like a melon skin colorization, more on a green tones or and more on the marbling kind of an effect. The other factor that I also notice is that as the plant grows longer, if they are receiving very good fertilizer, foliar fertilizer, or some sort of that kind of, if a very well balanced medium for growth, the leaves tend to become more bigger and more healthy looking. And in a way, it can say it's very much like a succulent plant, in a way to say that it does not require a lot of watering. Hence, the plant looks much more vigorous in that kind of growth. Another factor when it comes to flowers, or you call in this case you call inflorescence, it's quite insignificant. It's more appear to be like a blob kind of thing. So if you are using a lot of foliar fertilizer where it is concentrated to give flowers, you may find that this appearance as flowers in the plant. But however, I noticed that they are not very visually pleasing. So if you want to trim them, you can do so. Otherwise, you can just leave it be. One of the unique features when it comes to the flowers is that they do somehow sort of like burst out and release its pollen, And usually it happens when an element where it just, if you were to water the garden, or if at all that just a quick rain shower takes place, instead of that they do spray out the pollens. But I have not yet found that they bear seed pods. So in a way, I find that the best propagation is to use uh, wine cuttings, in a way to cut and poke this trailing wine for propagation purpose. I also find that this particular plant does very well as vertical garden plants, as they do not require too much watering, and somehow they do also well in semi-watering circumstances, where in case if their medium or hanging pot is slightly dried off. So in a way it is quite hardy in that context. Now I come to the end of my video. I hope you really enjoyed it, and if you can, please do click like and subscribe, and also do drop in some of any your comments if you have any queries for this particular plant. Thank you and enjoy gardening.